Alright, so we're going to take this thing on a quick drive. Currently the oil temperature is bouncing between 167 and 169 degrees, just about up to temp. Our vacuum gauge is showing about 2.5 inches of vacuum. That's inches of mercury, the inner scale there. This outside scale is centimeters of mercury. And from the 0 point up is where it starts reading in PSI on the inside. Outside is in kilograms per centimeter squared, so whatever for people in Britain and shit. So what we're trying to find out is how much blow-by is making it into the crankcase with this PCV and what happens. All of the aftermarket PCV valves do away with the intake port. There's actually a port inside the cylinder head that pulls vacuum just in front of all of the intake valves. Driving around a little bit, going to start CMOS tools right now. So we got that thing logging. Hopefully I'm able to overlay it. If not, then whatever. Sometimes that's a pain to do. But essentially the goal is to have the crankcase under vacuum, and even if it's just a small amount at all times. If the crankcase goes into boost, that's when you start pushing out seals and stuff. These Mark 7s are known for sweating or leaking oil very slowly around all of like the oil cap, the cam magnet seals, valve covers, spark plug tubes, and stuff like that. So in an ideal world, we would have vacuum at all times under the crankcase. Sometimes that's not possible. We're trying to determine if it gets actually to the point that it's under pressure. And some other stuff we want to look at is how quickly it goes from from having pressure, if it's present, to a vacuum. Because when the intake manifold goes from pressure to vacuum, such as at the end of a straightaway on track, the intake has the potential to, and by intake I mean the intake valves, not the turbo inlet pipe. The intake valves will slurp oil up from wherever it is pulled inside of the PCV. It's actually getting into vacuum right there, so that's nice. Alright, so go ahead and get it into 5th gear. We'll go down to about 2,000 RPMs and we'll punch it up to about 3. See, it kind of dips to nothing and then it goes back under vacuum. Drops back to vacuum pretty quickly. Hopefully the overlay can catch and see. We can kind of see relative manifold vacuum, intake manifold vacuum versus crankcase vacuum, and see how those levels relate, because the pressure differential between those two is what can potentially cause the oil to immediately go from crankcase into the intake manifold. If the pressures are equalized, or at least minimize the amount of pressure difference between the two, then the oil's not going to go from the bottom of the oil pan up the air oil separator, the coarse air oil separator, into the PCV and then sucked in by the intake manifold. So we'll see what happens. And just for a little bit of reference, this is a tune I did myself, running about 25.5 PSI peak, which happens around 4,000 RPMs. It's just a little bit lower up until 3,000. IS-20 downpipe with a cat, and the cylinders from about 4,000 down to about 6,500. I'm at like 17 psi. So it's not a crazy boosted to the moon kind of tune, but this is more than I typically run on track. On track, I typically run more timing heavy tune because that helps to evacuate heat out of the cylinders, but no amount of heat evacuation helps if you are sucking up oil and it's diluting the fuel charge and causing it to log a ton of knock. Go down to third gear real quick. Do a quick third gear pull. Actually expecting to see a little bit of positive pressure in the crankcase, but I think that the PCV solution that I am going to be testing out will be a little bit different as far as the oil, oil routing inside of the PCV goes. That's what I'm more interested in. So yeah, just kind of gonna see what's going on here. This guy go beside us. Pull off. Do a quick first, second, third gear pull. Video on track. I was getting some timing pull at VIR this last time out, and it was pretty bad in some cases. In the last session of the day, I was looking at an occasional bout down to like 15 degrees of timing pull, which is ridiculous. Basically, it's sucking up oil. I burned through about 1.5 quarts on track. I never have any issues with that. I might have to add 1/4 quart between oil changes of just normal daily driving, and that's like a 5,000 mile interval if there's no track duty. Running 5W40 up until now, it's running the liquid moly stuff in the blue jug that everybody runs. So yeah. Now running the Mobile One 5W40 synthetic. No real reason other than it's cheaper, and I am not ever going to send stuff back to FCP Euro because I just hate shipping things out. So let's see if anything funny happens if we downshift rapidly. Based off of what I'm seeing, I don't think that this PCV necessarily has a pressure differential kind of issue, at least not a really bad one. I was kind of expecting to see some pressure on the crankcase. One thing that concerns me about crankcase the crankcase PCV valves, stuff like the APR and integrated engineering, basically every single PCV plate out there, pretty much to me you'll have some vacuum. Now, to their credit, they don't blast oil into the intake manifold, but a lot of people who install aftermarket catch cans with a PCV plate have problems with oil pushing past seals. Rear main seal leaks are a big one. So just trying to learn a little bit about this system because it is very complicated. It is very German. But it's honestly, the stock PCV valve has a lot of engineering put into it. Our problem is it's just not really designed for motorsports, and yeah, I know some people have problems with them with the PCVs blowing at high pressures, blowing out the one of the diaphragms on the inside there. So that's a concern, but I'm only IS-20. I'm not looking to do any kind of crazy stuff. So yeah.